Hey y'all, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the family. I am your host, Raven M. Harris of the Reset with Raven podcast. And this is a very special episode. You are getting me, only me, just me, solo episode to commemorate, to celebrate our 1 year anniversary. We finally hit one. Y'all, this feels like this has been a long 1 year. Oh my gosh, I have interviewed over, I think, 40 people. I have also guested on over 40 episodes myself. Like Reset with Raven has reached so many countries. I just had someone reach out to me that was from Sweden as one of the listeners. So we have done so much in 1 year. So I just want to say and start this episode off by saying thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Shameless plug. If you have not subscribed, stop what you're doing. Pause this episode and share and subscribe. Share as well. Share with somebody who you like. They could use a weekly pick-me-up. They could use something to just rejuvenate them, refresh them, and just hear from somebody who's just keeping it real and talking about what it's like to have this journey of life and have to start, I wouldn't say over, but have to make some changes, have to make some shifts, have to reset, have to do something differently in their life, do something that scares them, and or they're at a big pivotal point in their life and they got to make some changes. We're coming into this post-pandemic era and people are trying to figure out what's next. What does that look like? What's that from a locale perspective? Do I move? Do I stay in the same location? What does that look like from a career perspective? Is my job not serving me? Do I not enjoy what I do? Is there no purpose or fulfillment in this career? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? Am I ready to just, do my own thing? So many different things. People are resetting. I would say the world is resetting. So there's some nuggets, there's some episodes, there is something in this podcast for everybody. So I want to make sure that you share this with somebody who is about to be in their own reset or is experiencing their reset right now. So I've had so many thoughts in my head that I just was trying to figure out, what do I say, in a 1 year anniversary? Where do I start? What do I talk about? Because it's just been so much. And then, of course, for, all of my loyal listeners, that we've taken a couple of weeks break. So haven't had an episode in a couple of weeks. And it's like, oh, what's going on? There's been so much, right? And I enjoy putting out content. And the thing that as a content creator, podcaster, when you're trying to figure out what to put out next, you always want to make sure that you're serving people. Like, I have so many of my own experiences, but I want to make sure that in my experiences in these conversations and these episodes, especially in a solo episode where you're like, I'm just listening to her talk for about 30 minutes. I want to give you something juicy, something good. And leading up until this 1 year anniversary, I was trying to figure out what is the best thing. What do the listeners and the viewers of Reset with Raven need? And, I got stumped. And I heard this quote, and it says, never allow a moment to become a monument. And that is something that I definitely experienced when I was experiencing like this stumpness, this frustration of like, oh, do I go here? Do I go there? I allowed that to delay me by 2 or 3 weeks of putting out anything. So I want to talk about not allowing moments to paralyze you. So what is, backed up the podcast just in full transparency in the past few weeks is, number one, analysis paralysis, overthinking. I'm sure somebody is like, girl, that's me. I overthink everything. And great quality of being someone who is like analytical and thinks through things. You try to work out all the details. But the reality is you can never plan for every possibility. Our brains can't even fathom that. And you don't know what tomorrow brings. In addition, there's the personal insecurities, right? You're hitting a year, you feel like, oh my gosh, I got to do something big, banging, bomb. So there's that thing. You're like, what are people expecting? Do they want something that just knocks them off their feet? So personal insecurities and just, again, allowing outside opinion to impact and really direct what I do. Overall, that now, moving past that is, in the past, water under the bridge, but I have to talk about it because it definitely stopped me. And what helped me to just get over it, I just reminded myself, just go, serve the people, the listeners. You all will tell me what resonates with you, what doesn't resonate with you, and just speak from your heart, speak truth, speak light. And that's all people want. That's what they need. And you guys, let me know what episodes are resonating with you, what conversations, you were like, oh, that just spoke to me. That went down it gave me chills, went down my body, went down my spine. Let me know. So what I came up with is a few points on what I've learned in the past year after interviewing all of these guests and talking with people, also as being a guest myself. And the first thing that I learned is no one has it all together. That's number one. I have had the honor, because it's been my honor to interview people from all over the world in the past year and have these conversations that, it was almost like, you were sitting with us at the coffee table and you got to hear all of this good, juicy details and information about their lives and how they've had to navigate obstacles, hurdles, setbacks, frustration, devastation. And you got to hear what they did. And what I realized, and some of them, big names, have done TEDx's, some of them very wealthy from a financial standpoint, all of that stuff. But what I realized, they're all human. Every person that I had the honor and the privilege to have on the podcast in the past year, they're all human. They've all had their own obstacles. They've all failed. And they don't have it all together. Where they are succeeding in one place, there are other areas in their life, admittedly, that aren't going the best. There are things that they still have insecurities about. There are things that they question. There are feelings and emotions that they have about what their future looks like as well. And I say this to say, because it was reassuring for me as I'm in my own journey, and I'm sure someone listening is in their journey and they're like, oh, I should have it figured out by now. Why don't I? That's a question I've asked myself several times. Like, girl, get it together. Why don't you have it figured out yet? Nobody truly does. It's a journey. It's a path. And it's a path that you have to choose. And the path is winding. The path has hills, valleys, ups, downs, curveballs, ditches, storms, tornadoes. But it's your path. And you don't have to have it figured out based on somebody else's path, based on what somebody else said, based on what you read, what you saw in the magazine, what you saw on social media. That brings me to point number 2. Behind the highlights. Nothing is as it seems. That's what I learned over this past year. One amazing thing that I love about doing the podcast is I get to meet these people before we interview. We have pre-interviews. And we talk about things that are maybe off topic for the recording, what we want to focus on, highs, lows, what's happening currently in their lives. And oftentimes it gets very personal. And even before we hit the record button, we go over anything, that we can talk about, can't talk about, anything that's a sensitive matter right now. And then after we hit the record button, we go. And you get small insight, 30 minutes into their lives. And then we hit stop. And oftentimes, if there's time, we debrief. And people say, oh my gosh, that conversation brought up something I hadn't talked about in years. Or it made me think about how I'm approaching X, Y, and Z. Or it evokes some emotions in me that I still need to work through. You see, when we look at people on social media, we see people smiling, grinning on the gram, grinning on Facebook. You ask people, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm blessed. I'm great. Doing well. Most of that is just like the common courtesy response. Not necessarily true. You can listen and hear it's not true oftentimes in how high-pitched it is, the tone of it, facial expression. People don't go into all the details of what they're going through, what they're experiencing. Just a reminder too, I know I've beat this issue. Well, they say beat it like a dead horse, but I have to reiterate this. I'm reiterating this now for myself too, about social media and even just people you see out here in these streets. You never know. You never know what people are going through behind the scenes, behind the highlights, because real life is happening to everyone. You just see what they choose to show you. People don't typically show you the bad stuff, the painful stuff, the devastating stuff. It's not really, cool for social media. So actually, I had a terrible day today. No, I got to show you me smiling, jet setting in the DR, in Aruba, in Costa Rica, in Paris. That's what I got to show on the gram, on Facebook. Those are conversation starters. Ooh, look at me. And I love a good vacation. So I'm not being negative towards, jet setting, because I love a good vacation. What I want you to get from this is, though nothing is as it seems. Some of these same people you see jet setting are anxious, depressed, miserable, emotionally broken. You never know. And some of these guests that I've had the honor to interview, I was able to get that information. I was able to see them. And it's been so enlightening, because it's a reminder to me, like there's days where I am still working on not being so hard on myself, expecting myself, why don't you have it together? Because everybody else don't have it together either. That's why I did that episode and I called it, Actually, I'm Not Okay. But again, don't let a bad moment turn into a bad day. Don't make a moment into a monument. Point number 3. of some of the greatest lessons I've learned in this year. You can find common ground with almost anyone. These podcast guests have been phenomenal. People have backgrounds, stories, experiences that have just blown my mind. I'm like, really? What? You did what? I can't believe that. That has just been super awesome, amazing to just talk to people from all different types of just experiences, because you learn so much. And I've even stretched myself. Stay tuned, because you're going to see some more and more stretched episodes where it's like, this wouldn't be a person that I would think that I would normally bring on the podcast. But let's see where this goes. Let's see where this conversation leads. What might we uncover? What might we explore? What might we learn together? And I want to leave you with the final and maybe even biggest revelation, epiphany, awakening, whatever term works for you, that the podcast has brought me. I've learned that clarity comes from doing and with time. So, giving you a little bit of background, when I started this podcast and people are like, well, what's your mission? What's your vision? What are your goals? What are you searching? What are you looking for people to gain from this? And, I started writing all these things down, and some of it, let's just be honest, it sounded good. Drafting it out. But you don't really know. You don't know initially what's going to resonate with people. Because I remember some of the episodes and I was like, oh, this is so good. That's what I thought, right? They weren't necessarily some of my highest listened to or YouTube viewed videos. Then there were some other nuggets where people just seem to really relate. They really connected. I got DMs I got comments from people saying like, oh, this is so, I'm glad somebody's talking about it. And I had no idea that would be where this journey led me. And I would say right now, as I'm in the midst of this journey and we continue to grow and we continue to really make sure people are equipped and empowered to live a life of their dreams, no matter what, to reset from heartbreak, headache, disappointment. What I'm learning is go with the journey. You never know where it may lead. Clarity is only coming for me from continuing to do, from continuing to put out more and more content, from continuing to research and learn and explore and challenge even myself, challenge some of my beliefs. Go deeper in the questions. Connect with the guests as much as I can to really unpack their stories and to learn from them. Now, these are some powerhouses that have done some amazing things. But I couldn't have told you a year ago that this would be the path, the journey, the mission, what the values were of the podcast. I know for sure it's to inspire, to bring light, and to bring hope. But I didn't know that on day one. I didn't even know that at the top of this year. It's only with continuing to do that I've learned, that I've grown. So for anybody right now who's like, well, I just can't figure it out. I'm seeking clarity. Everything just seems just all over the place right now. Continue to do. Continue to put one foot in front of the other. And you'll learn along the way, but realize it takes time. It's all part of the process. My mentor, I'm sure she's like smiling and grinning right now because she's had to remind me of this several times. It's all part of the process. The drafts, writing something on paper and then scratching through it, throwing it in the trash, looking at it again, digging it out of the trash. The sleepless nights, the turning something over in your head multiple times, the no's, the disappointment, the self-doubt. It's all part of the process. If you don't remember anything else in this episode, from this conversation, it's all part of the process. The process to become the best version of yourself. The process to learn you. We study everything else. Study math, science, go to school for years, get all these degrees. But do we study ourselves? Do we study ourselves? Do we study ourselves? Do we question why we do that? Think like that. Say that. Dress like that. It's all part of the process. Study yourself. Season 2, this season for me to start, it was a mental difficulty. It was definitely one of those mind over matter type things. It was to just restart myself. I want to encourage somebody who has to start on a new journey or restart or start from a different place. Don't stop. Don't stop you. Don't handcuff yourself. Remember your vision. Remember your vision. Remember your why. Starting over, starting again. It can be challenging, but remember, don't stop betting on you. That's how you're able to keep going. That's how you're able to start over again. Keep going. You know, I was just listening to the verses with Mary and BB Winans that happened, I think it was on Easter Sunday. The song that was sang by Mary was the song Yesterday. And I remember when I first heard that, and it hit differently when I heard it this time. The lyrics were yesterday. I cried my last tear yesterday. I needed to hear that. No wallowing, no whining, no beating yourself up. Decide. I will bet on myself. And I cried my last tear yesterday. Recently, I had a death in my family. And the thing I will say about death is puts things into perspective, puts life into perspective. It's a reminder we don't know how much time that we're given. So with every breath, every day, go hard. Mary ended the versus battle with, go get your blessing. Go get your blessing. Go get what's yours. Go get what he promised you. Bet on you. You see this podcast? It's not about me. Somebody needs to hear this. Somebody needs to get out of their pit. Somebody needs to wipe their face. Somebody needs to just push forward. I know how incredibly hard it is to push forward. But I want to remind you, you owe you. Life literally is in the blink of an eye. I was just reminded that a few weeks ago with the recent passing. What are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your life? People often ask me, why did you start this podcast? Like, what do you want people to get from it? Short answer is I started the podcast because when I started it, I was in a period, a place of loss, of frustration, of emptiness, of regret. I was thinking to myself, what have I done with the past 29 years of my life? I wasn't proud of me. Yeah, full transparency. There was some things that I was like, dang, you really blew that. Or you messed that up. Why didn't you take that path? Why didn't you move here? Why didn't you leave that sooner? All of that, just beating myself up. Until I realized I'm inhaling and I'm exhaling. I still have breath in my body. I can make a change. I can reset. Though it may be challenging, though it is stretching me, I still have work to do. And I'm supposed to live a fulfilled, joyous life. That's up to me. Stop whining. Stop wallowing. Stop crying. Wipe your face and reset. So yeah, the podcast initially, I would say it was started from a place of I needed this. But now I know the world needs this. Depression, anxiety, mental health concerns are higher than ever. People need a reset. And people need to know that a reset is available to them. I want you to share this episode. I want you to share this podcast. I want you to realize what we talk about here, some of the stuff people talk about behind closed doors, but we're going to talk about it publicly. And I have some bomb limited series coming out where they're going to have a singular focus. And we're talking to guests with that singular focus. Coming up next is a men's only series. That's right. We're talking to men only about what's important to them. Who's asking men that right now? What's important to them? You all will be shocked, surprised, mouth hit the floor by some of these answers. Make sure you tune in. I'm so excited. The month of May is men only. We're talking to men only. Y'all make sure you tune in, share it with a friend or foe that you know will get something from this. We can't do this without your support. We cannot do this. So stop what you're doing right now. Stop what you're doing right now and subscribe, number one. Subscribe to the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're not following me on Instagram, I'm Raven M. Harris. That's where we'll be posting all types of clips from the podcast, more exclusive interviews, and go lives with some of the guests. So if you're not following me on Instagram, stop what you're doing. Follow me, Raven M. Harris, on Instagram. It means the most to me for you all to share this podcast. This podcast depends and heavily relies on word of mouth from our listeners and our viewers just like you. Again, thank you. Thank you for making this one of the most amazing years of my life with Reset with Raven. Remember, don't quit on you because a reset is always available to you.